we'll go ahead and get started. My name's Glenn Coggy. This is like to welcome everybody to Laborfront edition of Table Talk with Henry Martin, candidate for United States Congress in the 6th Congressional District. Henry is an Army veteran, a veteran of the National Guard, and an educator. So I'm going to turn it over to Henry and let him give a better in-depth description of who he is and why he's running in the 6th.
Well, thank you, Glenn. Sorry about the phone ringing. I'm happy to be on, and I appreciate the invitation. Just tell folks a little bit about the campaign. As my bio is, it's on my webpage. You know, educator, 22 years. Been a coach, teacher, administrator. I'm a referee. So my plate stays pretty full, and I keep busy. So this campaign is based on 3 pillars, and those pillars are healthcare, justice, and democracy. Healthcare, because no American family should go broke from the onset of a major illness or injury, and everybody deserves access to care. Justice comes in lots of forms. First, every person deserves equal justice under the law, and those can't just be words we say, they have to be words with action. And we need to be holding criminals accountable, regardless of their means or access to power. We need to provide the environmental justice that we require for the preservation of our planet for posterity. We need to work on social justice as we right the wrongs of both our present and our past, and restorative justice for those who are wrongly convicted or in some way caught up in a system that breeds perpetual poverty through fines, fees, bail, or incarceration instead of treatment. And the final pillar is our democracy, because as we've seen over the last 5 years, democracy is a fragile concept. And we have watched our institutions stretch to their limits. And if it were not for the efforts of a few patriots that also believed in those institutions and the ineptitude of the previous administration, we would be living in a very different country today. So I'm going to share a little something as a vet that may make sense. There's an unwritten promise. Ever since we've gone to an all-volunteer military force, there's an unwritten promise. When we take the oath of office, the same oath that everybody else takes, to defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that promise is that we will take care of the fight. Those of us who volunteered to do the fight will take care of the fight. But that comes with an expectation that our elected leaders will take care of those who are at home. And somewhere that promise is no longer being kept. And so we need people like myself who are willing to go to Washington and renew that promise and take care of the people. I hear all the lip service about, well, let's take care of our veterans. What are we doing for our veterans? That's a good question. What are we doing for veterans? What better way to take care of a veteran than to take care of every citizen of the United States with a Medicare for all, so that we don't miss those veterans that are near a VA facility? What better way?
Right.
So we've got a lot of duplication that needs to be done, needs to be eliminated. And this is where the campaign starts.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely right. Excuse me. And as a former veteran, or not a former, I guess you're always a veteran, as a veteran of the United States Army, and then that you're in the National Guard as well, or the reserves, I think is a better term. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was in the National Guard, not reserves. The 2 different entities. One's run by the federal government, the other one's run by the state. And okay. I did work the flood of '93, and we did see the devastation. What happens when Mother Nature decides to take over? She reminds us that, hey, we are very, very vulnerable, and with climate change being actually identified by the Department of Defense as one of the greatest threats to our national security, it's time for us to act. There's no longer, we can't sit on the bench. We can't sit here and argue anymore. We have to have these discussions. And I am not in the business of not going to the fight. I'm not in the business of leaving the fight alone. It's okay if you don't get everything that you want in a legislation piece. You have to negotiate for pieces within legislation so that everybody gets something.
Well,
But getting nothing is no longer an option.
right. Well, the mark of a good legislator is somebody that knows the art of the compromise. It's not the art of the deal. It's the art of a compromise. It's the ability to find common ground with someone on the other side of the aisle and build on that common ground. I guarantee that it doesn't matter who it is in the United States Congress, there are things that you can find to agree with them on, and that's where you start building your foundation. I believe that would be accurate, and that's what you've expressed that you would do.
Absolutely. Um, my greatest fear is that we continue down this road. One of our greatest enemies right now is gerrymandering. Gerrymandering has a purpose. One, it allows legislators to pick their voters. No better way for a legislator to guarantee their job. I'm not going in this for a job guarantee. Obviously, I'm not going in this for a job guarantee because I'm running in a district that is considered red, and they assume it won't go any other way. The media almost guarantees it when they start saying they can't win in these states, they can't win in these areas. And so the party doesn't necessarily invest in these races as they should. And you run up against all kinds of hurdles. And you have to show X before you get Y, and so on and so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, are not all of these seats worth contesting? That's the question that we have to ask.
Right, they are. So moving forward, when education, what do you teach, or who do you teach?
Well, I'm a math teacher. Right now, I work at Job Corps, and basically, Job Corps is an offshoot of the Department of Labor, where they facilitate skill training in skilled trades, so that students who don't go to college have a non-traditional route, and they can go into skilled trades and labor and make a good living, because skilled trades still some of the best paying jobs in the country.
They are. As a skilled tradesman, I understand that firsthand.
Mm-hmm.
And once you learn a trade, that's something that you can take with you everywhere. It'll benefit you for the rest of your life. Since you're involved in math, you probably have done the numbers on your district. Have you figured out about how many voters you're going to have to get to sway your way?
Well, the number that we had was a little over 180,000 votes. We've got to swing 180,000 votes to move this district in our direction. It is possible to move those 180,000 votes. We have our plan is we've got to raise my name ID. And so we are taking the steps to increase the name ID, hence the reason why we're on the phone so much. We spend a lot of time trying to talk to people in district, out of district. We take the time out when folks like yourself are hosting podcasts, and you have a reach of so many people. We'd like to reach your listeners and your viewers and talk to them. Let them know that this campaign is ready to do the work. Then we have to raise the identity of the campaign itself, not just me, but the campaign itself. So you have to know that that's Henry Martin, but what does he stand for? So we have to raise the campaign identification. And so all of these things cost money. There are the primary ways to get your message out, your earned media, and that's where you're invited on to have an interview, like as with you. There's paid media, and that's when I buy ad time on Facebook, Twitter, the newspaper, radio, television. And when you multiply that by 36 counties, I'm sorry, the preliminary look, it looks like we're going to be 34 counties because they took 2 out.
They took out the 2 hottest counties.
they took out Monroe and Audrain, but actually I still think it's 36 counties, but I'll have to do another look.
Right.
Um, we've got it's a big district, and so because of the size of the district, there are at least 9 television markets in the district, probably 10 or 11. So you can understand where having to raise the footprint of this campaign gets a lot more complicated with without resources. So we work hard to see to it that we're getting in the resources that we're going to need. We're trying to have a really strong first quarter so that we can really go in and we can say, hey, look here, this is what we're doing, this is what we've got going, this is how we're going to get it done.
Right. And so you've got a Act Blue account,
Yes, sir.
and you want to tell the people what the Act Blue account is now?
Well, you can reach my Act Blue account. It's easier to reach my Act Blue through my webpage, which is henrymartinforcongress.com. There you can do everything. You can look at my my stance on some basic issues. You can volunteer for the campaign. You can donate to the campaign. I would much prefer somebody go through my webpage to get to the Act Blue, but because the webpage, you just go to Act Blue and you can type in Henry Martin, Missouri 6th, and that'll give you what you're looking for. That'll give you my Act Blue there. And then you can also follow the campaign on Twitter at HM for Congress.
Right. Well, that'll be great. And hopefully you can generate some donations through this platform. To give people a perspective of how big that district is, it is literally the northern third of Missouri, from Illinois to Nebraska and all across the bottom of Iowa. I mean, it's a huge district, border to
Yep.
border.
Yeah, it's just easiest way to say it. It's the Highway 36 corridor all the way to the Iowa border, and it goes as far south as Blue Springs.
So that's a big district. It's really,
Yes.
and you're
Yes.
located on the Kansas City side of the state.
Yes, sir.
Nice.
And we are scheduling our trips and trying to make all of everything that we do is deliberate, and we're trying to bear fruit from every action that we do. So when we go somewhere, we want to be on the ground talking to people, want to sit down with the county commissioners, Chamber of Commerce, various other people that are going to be key in helping us win this race. That's where we are.
Right. Well, that's what it's going to take. It's going to take a lot of chicken dinners and county fairs and various things like that. And all that takes money. So everybody, please don't hesitate to go to Henry's website and follow his Act Blue and make a donation to help him out. One of the things I want to talk to you about is a union official, former union official and labor leader, is your position when it comes to organized labor. And let's start with right to work. What's your thoughts on right to work?
Well, I'm a union kid, and I've been in a union myself. The last union I was in was the American Federation for Teachers, which was in the Kansas City, Missouri School District. My dad was a member of the Brotherhood of Locomotive Engineers, United Transportation Union, until he died. And unions do help see to it that labor gets a fair wage for the wealth that they help create. In that vein, at the federal level, our responsibility would be, what I would be looking to do is repeal Section 14B of Taft-Hartley that allows states to have right to work laws on the books, because it was basically a mechanism to punt from the federal government. Because Taft-Hartley basically took the right of workers to negotiate by giving states the ability to say, okay, hey, you can pass a right to work law, which will allow you to not fire employees for trying to form a union or various other unsightly things. I think the union is the backbone of the middle class. Without unions, I mean, we can look at what's happened. As union membership has declined, the middle class has shrunk.
Well, we've seen a
Um,
disastrous effect of bad trade laws all the way back to NAFTA, which was signed and passed with some help from some Democrats. As a
mhm.
United States Congressman, would you be opposed to any trade legislation that not create that did that forcing the workers in the United States to compete with third world nations, child labor, various things like that?
Well, what I would require is that if we were going to have international trade agreements such as that, that we have equivalent competing clauses within the trade agreement. So if there's a union here in the United States, there has to be a union in the place where they're trying to go. We can't continue this race to the bottom. We just can't. We can't continue giving large corporations huge tax breaks to come to town for X number of years. And when their tax abatement runs out, they go for greener pastures. So basically, it ends up being a game of whack-a-mole. So as legislators, our job is to try and get things to where we can keep things stable. And so if we're going to sign these agreements, then we need to say, okay, well, we have unions here in these industries. And so if your country is not going to have unions in these industries that are going to have unions that are going to compete for have a competitive wage, then we're not going to sign any treaty that has anything to do with that. So I think the biggest part is we're just competing with the fact that they don't have a union to protect their workers. That's what we're competing with. We're not competing with anything else. I'm all for an international labor union. I think that would be the cat's meow, and that would solve a lot of these problems the world over.
Well, and for all the people out there to complain about how much that would cut into corporate profits, let's not forget that right now corporations are saving trillions of dollars in offshore accounts. And they do that to avoid taxes in the United States and various things like that. But we have been creating wealth for these corporations for decades, and we're not seeing a fair return for the investment of our labor. So we need laws in Congress that recognize that and will help put some mechanisms in place to enforce laws that protect America's workers.
Well, and here's a little, I'm going to give a little plug to the Biden administration because I do like this. It was something that he worked on and he worked hard on. And he basically came in and they're not singing their success enough, but he came in and convinced all of the advanced nations of the world that, hey, we need a floor for taxes, for corporate income taxes. We need a floor that everybody is competing from, because this race to the bottom it's basically killing the coffers of every nation around the world, and it's allowing the rise of these demagogues and these megalomaniacs that basically are just coming in and saying they're telling the people that, hey, your government's not responsible, blah 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 blah. And that's because of all the tax breaks and the loopholes that these corporations are using. So the floor that they set is 15%, and that's a great floor to start from. So it basically makes sure that corporations are going to be taxed at least 15% wherever they are. And if memory serves me correctly, at the UN, they did adopt that resolution, and many nations have already gone and implemented that 15% tax rate. So those tax havens are no longer the havens that they once were.
No, I agree 100%. And I'll say this about the Biden administration: it is the most pro-worker, pro-union presidency that I can remember in my long life. He's doing tremendous work in his appointments at the National Labor Relations Board, the Department of Labor. I mean, he's doing a wonderful job of supporting working families through those entities. So I appreciate it. Good answers on that, by the way. So one of the things that I like to do, and I've been doing it for a long time, I kind of call it King for a Day.
Okay.
And I ask you, so Henry Martin, when you win Congress, what are the first things that if you were the king and everybody had to follow whatever rules you put out, what would be the first things you would do that would improve the life of your constituents in the 6th congressional district?
One of the first things we do, we get a real healthcare reform bill passed. That would be something of a single payer system. And here's why. And this is the part where we do such a poor job as Democrats of marketing this idea. Well, right now there are families that are paying $1,000 per month, and some pay $1,000 per payday for their insurance premium, just to keep their family on their insurance. And just for example, let's just say that we implemented a single payer system. You don't have to worry. You get to pick your doctor. The federal government has no say in who you see, blah, blah, blah. You don't have to worry about all those things. All those things, everything that you know about your medical care remains the same. The only thing that is different is now, instead of an insurance company in the way, you're going to have the federal government making those reimbursement claims to the doctor. So instead of $1,000, now you pay $700, for example. Now I'm using an arbitrary number, but you get where I'm coming from. If
Right.
you were paying $1,000 and now you're paying $700, that's $300 in your pocket.
Right.
That's $300 in your pocket. Now let's take that to the corporations, because they're going to have to pay too. So the corporation is also paying for medical insurance for people as well. And instead of paying their large insurance premium, they're paying a tax instead, a payroll tax that just goes and helps pay for the insurance for everybody. Now let's just say that they're a small business and they were paying $15,000 to $20,000 per month in premium to pay for all their employees. Well, now instead of paying $15,000 to $20,000 per month, they're paying $10,000 to $15,000 per month to pay for their employees. They
Right.
have a savings. So we're not marketing the fact that a single payer system pulls the profit out and leaves it as basically an administrative processing system. And you're not going to lose your quality of care. You're not going to lose your access to care. That's the first thing we do. The second thing we do is, and I know it's hard for everybody to understand, we need to legalize recreational marijuana across the country for a number of reasons. One, it brings those businesses out of the shadows. Those businesses literally cannot have bank accounts as they stand right now, because cannabis is still illegal under US code. But you can't just legalize marijuana. You also have to free every person that's been incarcerated on a low-level offense that just involved possession. They all have to be freed. So it's a big thing. These are big things. These things will help communities. I'm sorry, and I'm a person who's a firm believer in an individual's right to make choices about what they do in their spare time, how they do it in their spare time. When you're in public, you have one face. When you're in private, you have another face. Let people have their private face. That is it. I'm a guy that believes that we need to have a government that's big enough to take on the big, huge tasks and protect this nation, but small enough to stay out of my house.
Right.
So there's a difference between the public face and the private face. And so that's what we need to get past. People need to understand that public policy, when you're out in public, is one thing, but private policy is another. And the government needs to be very, very careful when you start talking about private policy, private things that affect my home, my personal actions, my personal behavior, right? Where my rights end, where yours begin, period. And so that's it. That's it. If I get into a lot of discussions. I have one of my siblings. She is a massive follower of everything COVID. And every time there's a change or something in COVID policy that comes down, I get a phone call from her, and we end up in a discussion. And I over a year ago, I said, look, I really don't care what the decision that is made, as long as it is a thoughtful decision and it was made with the interest of the people in mind. People are elected into positions of leadership. or appointed into positions of leadership to make decisions. We need them to make decisions so that people can take a marching order and make something happen from that decision. We don't have to agree with that decision, but we need to appreciate the fact that a decision was made. And leaders have to make those decisions day in and day out. So let's just appreciate the decision that was made, and let's stop arguing about the decision and how we disagree with it. Because you're not going to agree with every decision that's made. That is, I mean, you go to any local bar on a Sunday, and you listen to the guys, you listen to the armchair quarterbacks and the armchair coaches, and they're mad at the decision that was made on the field. Well, that coach made the best decision they had with the information they had and the personnel they had on the field at the time. You don't have to like that decision, but they made that decision. So that's a perfect example. So we live with the decision and then we move on. And the final thing I definitely like to do is we need to do things to make sure to protect our democracy. Protecting our democracy, it's a fragile concept. I mean, look around the world. It's easy to give in to oligarchs. It's easy to give in to people that are nationalists. That stuff's easy because you're getting people to rally around their patriotism or their perception of patriotism. To me, patriotism is subjective. It's subject to the interpretation of the person doing the interpretation. That's it. To me, the most patriotic thing I can do is respect someone's right to disagree or respect someone's right to do something with which I may not agree. Because if they're protesting or if they're trying to draw attention to something, then that's their right. And who am I to tell them they're wrong for the way that they're doing it? What I want to know is, what is it that they want to address? Because that's more important than how they're doing it. What they want to address is what we should be paying attention to, because that's what's important. It's not important how they're doing it.
I think one of the things about people's differences of opinion, and I can handle differences of opinion. I have zero issues that if you like red and I like blue, or you think the Chiefs are better than the Raiders or whatever, it doesn't, as long as it's based in reality. And what I think we've seen so much of over the last handful of years is people base their decisions and opinions on emotion, more on emotion than they do on reality. Or they base it on a reality that fits their narrative, which may not be true to the content of the issue. So if they want to have a disagreement, by all means, we can sit down, drink a beer, and we can talk about the Chiefs versus the Raiders or the Cardinals versus the Royals, and we can have a good conversation about any of that, but we got to keep the emotion out, keep the false ideals out, and focus on the real hard truths that are sometimes painful for all of us to hear. So I think that's something that is excellent point that you're making. And I think that's something that people should remember when they have these conversations.
When we're talking about the United States of America, this is not a competition. We're all Americans first. Standing in a foxhole, there's not a Democrat and Republican in the foxhole. We belong to the U.S. Army. we're U.S. Army soldiers, and that's our job. We are protecting the United States. And I think everybody needs to take a step back and realize that our natural tendency is to find that which validates our position. And once we validated our position, sometimes if we're fighting to be right, we're going to stand there and we're going to fight from the top of that hill and say, see, this is true. But meanwhile, I found one article or one statement that made it true, but then there was actual data and information that made my position wrong or false.
Right.
So it's okay. Opinions are opinions. Everybody's got them. My dad used to say, you take an opinion and 50 cents and make a phone call. because everybody's got, and then there's always the opinions are like opinions like buttholes. Everybody's got one. They all stink at one time or another. So you just have to get past some of those things, and you have to realize it's okay to not agree on the nuance of a discussion, but we cannot take a set of facts just because somebody gave us a set of facts and tells us this is true. Yes, something is probably true, but in context, it does not necessarily support your argument. And I'm not angry with people at all. I do realize that we've had a phenomenon. The former president is truly a phenomenon. I mean, it's something I can't fully explain. It demonstrates to me that the American people, that we, the people of the United States, are hungry for something else. But I think this loyalty and fealty people are pledging to this man is a scary thing. Because I think to myself, historically, I mean, you can look at any in historical context, and you can look at any bad thing that's happened in the 20th century, and you can point to a couple of points in history that were pretty bad. I'm gonna use a quote. Leaders are trying to build bridges, while despots and tyrants are building walls. So I think that's something that we need to consider while we're going to the polls.
I couldn't agree with you more. And that's a pretty good statement to wrap things up on. Henry, thank you for coming on. I wish you the best of luck. You've got a big district to cover. You're going to be wearing out a couple sets of tires, and you'll be all over. And when you get over to this side of the state, let me know. I'll try and come out and hang out with you. As we get closer to the primary dates, we can do another one of these. Hopefully I figure out how to do the PowerPoint, because I was pretty proud of it, but couldn't. So I'll have one of my grandkids teach me how to use the stuff. But Henry, I appreciate it. You're a good dude. I enjoyed getting to meet you and talk to you a few times over the course of the last few years. And I wish you nothing but the best. Thanks for coming on Table Talk. I'll get this finished. I'll get some edits done on it so that we can have some more graphics and jazz it up a little bit. And I'll share it to Facebook, YouTube. Like I told you before we went on the air, I have a little TikTok channel that is really getting a lot of traction, a lot of followers. I'll grab a couple of excerpts out of it and put it on there. And we'll start doing everything we can to get the word out about Henry Martin, who he is and why he's running for Congress.
Okay, well, and I didn't say it before, but this campaign has earned a few endorsements from some sitting Missouri House members: Mark Ellerbrock, Wes Rogers, Maggie Nuremberg, and we're seeking more. But we want to make sure that we have a solid foundation so that we can really move this thing forward. So I really appreciate the opportunity to come on today. I have to thank you for bringing me in, and I will be in Hannibal. It looks like February 28th with the Central Committee, or the Democratic Club. Will be at Fiddlesticks.
Okay. Well, if I can make it up there, I'll head that way. I don't know for sure. I'll look at the calendar and see how things are going. With them ramping up production in the truck plant now, there will be some Saturdays. I don't even know what day the 28th is, but anyway, Henry, thank you.
Oh yeah, they just added Lincoln County too, and the truck and y'all's plant is over in Lincoln County, isn't it?
Well, we're in St. Charles County, but you can throw a stone into Lincoln County.
Okay.
Well, Rick and Keel could throw a stone that far. I can't throw it that far. Thanks for coming on. This concludes our edition of Table Talk. Henry Martin for Congress. Go to Zach Blue, look him up on the internet. Get to know him. He's a great dude. Thanks for coming on, Henry.
All right. Thanks a lot, Glenn. I appreciate it.
You bet, bud. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.